Views and opinions expressed in this production are those of the individual and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Shooters Nation or our sponsors. Information provided on this show is not a replacement for legal counsel or professional training. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. This is especially true on live shows.
Welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast, the talk show for you, the armed citizen. Join us as we discuss guns and gear, training, mindset and knowledge, industry news and buzz, and of course, the firearms culture. Be sure to join us after the show at shootersnation.com and become part of the Shooters Nation.
Hello and welcome to the Shooters Nation podcast. I'm your host, David Yancey, executive in charge of coffee consumption here at the Shooters Nation World Headquarters in beautiful Music City, USA, Nashville, Tennessee. And this is episode number 4. Co-hosting with me tonight is Mark Lancaster, owner of Squared Away Customs, joining us from the Live Free or Die state, New Hampshire. Hey, Mark.
How are we doing tonight?
Doing great, man.
Beautiful. I still have 6-foot snowbanks outside my office window here.
That is so depressing. You know, I mean, it was when does the frozen tundra of New Hampshire unfreeze? When does it thaw out?
So it's really any day.
Okay.
Things will start, but so for the most part, like the driveways, the snow's gone, the roads, the snow's gone. It's the piles that the plows made that are still lasting. So, but the best part about it is when all the snow leaves and the frost comes out of the ground, then we have this awesome season that most people don't know about called mud season.
That sounds awesome.
Absolutely fantastic for your house and your floors and your entry mats. And I got a brand new truck this week, and my truck has already got mud covered floors, which is awesome.
Nice. The christening. Yeah. No, I mean, I think mud season sounds like it's the favorite of children and dogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have a black lab, so that's awesome. Who calls the couch home. So.
Right. Yeah. Just kind of a, I don't know, man. I don't know if you've ever, I used to watch the Chappelle Show, and that just reminds me immediately of the, Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories, where, he's got the muddy shoes on Eddie Murphy's couch. So, yeah.
I don't remember that one.
No, it's completely politically incorrect.
The first season. And man, that was should rewatch that.
I can't even begin to repeat what he said on the podcast. It's just we would completely lose our Apple iTunes clean rating, but it was fantastic, and the couch played a very key role. So yeah. Oh man, yeah. No, I mean, it's I don't know. We had another cool spell here in Tennessee, and it got down into the 50s. So that's I think spring has sprung for us, but. I did get to go out and do some shooting today before the rain set in. So,
awesome.
Yeah, it was good to do that and kind of clear my head. So
I still do a fair amount of pistol shooting in the winter. I do my best to get to the range as much as possible. It's a quarter mile away from here.
Okay.
I was the vice president of the range, but with a new baby and work and business and everything, I stepped down from the vice president of the range. Now I'm just the chief range officer.
Gotcha.
Chief range officer.
Is it outdoor range or indoor?
Yeah, it's a small outdoor range. We have about 150, 200 members, somewhere in there.
Okay.
We got a little clubhouse and lots of improvements and stuff like that. But it's a small range. So I get there quite often to shoot pistol. But I this winter had a big Remington 700 project that I took. And has not been good enough weather to be proned out for a while now. And I'm just kind of like chomping at the bit to go lay in the dirt and shoot this thing some more. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
I think our range is 5 minutes from my house. So it's a little bit further away than a quarter mile, but on the days that I get to work from home or, especially on the weekends or days off, I try to get over there, as often as I can. And, moving that close to a range has just been murder on my ammunition budget.
It's a good problem to have, right?
It is. Yeah. It's taught me the beauty of aluminum cased ammunition because I just don't care about picking it up at all. Brass, I feel a little bit guilty, especially if it's 10 millimeter or 45 or something like that I reload. But, aluminum, whatever. There you go. That's one less spot of mud that you have to walk on. You're welcome. So, yeah.
I've never reloaded a day in my life. I don't have any equipment to do so. But I always pick up my brass because it's the Ranger rule. So,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
We just have a bucket that we just dump it in if you don't want it, and people are happy to take it. So,
right.
I probably should start reloading. I mean, the amount that I shoot, the amount of classes I take, I really should. Just a time thing for me,
It is. And, I'll tell you that for me, the reloading press, and I've got a fairly nice one. I've got a Dillon 550B, so it's a progressive, and it does all the cool stuff. And you can reload a couple hundred rounds in an hour with a good rhythm. But lately, it's been kind of like a treadmill or a piece of exercise equipment where it's really good for holding up laundry and stuff because I haven't reloaded anything. Yeah. So it's
I bet that's like nightmare for the guys at Dillon or something like that.
It really is. Yeah. So there we go. We just killed Dillon's, their sponsorship in the future of the Shooters Nation podcast. Sorry guys. It makes a really good hanger holder though. It looks great with a pair of khakis laying across it. So
that's awesome.
Me. Well, that reminds
I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that it's in your bedroom though, where your laundry is.
I've moved it. It's actually now out in the garage, and it's covered with all sorts of random stuff out there, and it's got its own nice little bench, and I try to keep it clean. And so the press itself is actually covered with a nice Dillon cover, and it keeps it dust free and in good shape. But I've got so much junk piled up around it. I really just need to go out there and clean out that garage and start reloading again. Believe it or not, my wife tells me on a fairly regular basis, you really ought to uncover that thing and reload. And I don't know how many wives out there say, hey, you should go reload ammo. But
wife a word right there.
Yep. Yeah. So, of course, she likes to shoot 45, and that's what I've got it set up to reload right now. So that's probably a hint that, hey, get your
25 cents.
Exactly. Yeah. Get your hind end out there and reload some ammo for me. Chop. So, well, I tell you, tonight's episode's probably going to be made possible by the filler phrase, because I listened to last week's episode and oh my God, I don't know what went wrong, but I said that probably more times than I used a comma. So my apologies to everybody. I wish I had written a sticky note and stuck it on my screen tonight that said, stop saying, but my apologies to everybody. I really apologize. And the fact that I mentioned it tonight has now cursed me, and I'll probably say it infinitely more times tonight than I did last week. So once again, you're all welcome for that. Me. Well, so tonight's agenda is going to be a little different for those of you listening. Today is really close. Actually, today is. I just looked at the calendar. Today is our 1 month anniversary. So this episode marks the end of our first month doing the podcast, and we've had some amazing growth just in the past week. And I want to say that we owe our success to all you guys out there, our listeners. So, Mark, here's an interesting stat. I did some checking around today, and like everything else on Facebook, there is a group for podcasters. And sure, sign me up. I need more of that in my life. And I read it, and I asked a question. I said, what's the average number of downloads or listens per episode when you're getting started? And so the responses were, various. And it seemed like the general consensus was that you're doing good if you've got between 10 and 20 downloads or listens per episode in the first 6 months to a year. And so for us, over the past 3 episodes, and that's all we've done up to this point is 3, total, we've had 770 listens. Now that's cumulative, right? But each episode has garnered at least 190 listens, and that just blows my mind. This past week alone, we picked up 386 new listeners.
It's awesome.
It's
fantastic.
I can't.
It's a good thing they can't see us.
Right? Yeah. If they could see us, they'd like, get done, closed. Next thing, because these guys are not. I've got a face for radio, really.
Yeah.
But of course, the folks in that little podcast group were like, "You're kidding me, right?" And I said, "No." And they're like, "Well, how?" So that's the past 3 episodes. How far into this are you? How many episodes have you done? And I responded, 3, and the response was, damn, that's really good. And I had no idea, I'm sitting here just thinking, we're lucky if anybody tunes in at all. And so, for you listeners, thank you. Really, we can't thank you enough. Thank you for sharing the podcast with your friends. I really hope that you've subscribed to the show. And if you haven't, please pause the show just for a moment and do so. We also hope there it was, I said it again. Oh my God, I just need to stab myself with an ink pen every time I say it. But we hope that you'll give us a positive rating also on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher or Spotify or whatever you're listening from. Because what I've come to learn is that anytime you give us a positive rating out there, it really helps us. Because it makes sure that our show rises to the top whenever people search for new things to listen to. Plus, all your positive ratings make our wives feel really proud of us. So, we appreciate that. But Mark, tonight, I think that, what we decided we were going to do was a listener mailbag.
Absolutely.
So this will be fun. So you listeners, tonight's episode is all about you. And, honestly, I'm just going to say that it's kind of our way of thanking you for sticking with us for 4 episodes now. And you've sent questions and comments in along the way, either by Gmail or you've sent them to us on Facebook and a few direct messages on Instagram. And so we want to take a moment and filter through some of this mail and answer some questions from you. So, Mark, if you're ready.
Absolutely.
I'm going to sit here and go through a couple of these, and I think we've got some good ones. I did a little bit of pre-screening and looked through and found some that I thought were going to be really, really interesting. There were actually a lot of really good ones that I had to just kind of sort through, but I can't wait to get to some of these. So we'll just kick it off with this. This question comes from David in Spring Hill, Tennessee. No relation. And David says this. For the past 28 years, I have worked for a company with a rather large facility, about 330,000 square feet under one roof. He says, we have about 100 employees on site during normal working hours, and these folks are as close to me and as important to me as family. He goes on to say, I struggle with the idea of what I should do if an active shooter situation were to arise at work. Assuming that I have the opportunity to exit the building and get to safety, do I or should I retrieve my firearm from my car in the parking lot and return to the building to try to save my coworkers? And so I'll say this, in Tennessee, just recently, within the past 2 years, we had some legislation passed that makes it impossible for an employer to prohibit you from keeping a gun locked up in your car. So that's a new change for us. Folks in other states may not even have that option. So, but anyway, that was from David in Spring Hill. I've got thoughts. Mark, what do you think?
So I think first things first, I'm far from a subject matter expert, right? But my opinion, I think there's a lot of variables here. First of all, what's your training like? What level of training do you have and how proficient are you with this weapon? And I think the biggest one is, are you capable of making that choice if it comes to a deadly encounter with your firearm? Because if you're not, run out there grabbing it to run back in to put yourself in danger and maybe more people in danger, you're bringing another gun into the mix. You're bringing more ammunition into the mix. There's a lot of variables here. It's a tough one, and it's a case by case basis on this guy, I think. But man, I know I would have a hard time. I work from my own property, so yeah. So that's not something I really have to deal with. But and the other thing to think about is the law side of it, right? So if you leave and you go get a weapon and then you go back into the fight, yeah. That's a touchy situation too. And depending on what your state and local and laws are like, I'm not sure that's something you necessarily want to do either. But for somebody like me, if I know people are dying, I guess I'm not really too concerned about what the law is if there's something I can do to save a life.
Right. Yeah, you would kind of hope that the Good Samaritan law would kick in and protect you in those cases. Yeah, I thought about this as I read it, and like you, I think if these people were, in grave danger of being harmed or killed, and I had a means at my disposal to change that equation, I would struggle with this too. And I'll be the devil's advocate and say that maybe one reason why you shouldn't is law enforcement response. So, a 330,000 square foot building is large, and I think it's entirely possible that you would enter the building from a different point that law enforcement would be. So you might be coming in from the back of the building, and they might be coming in from the front of the building. And so, if you come back in with a handgun, when the police encounter you, all they know is that somebody's been in there shooting. They're responding to an active shooter, situation, and they encounter a person in civilian clothes with a handgun. I think that you might put yourself at danger. In that case, I don't
Absolutely.
know. I don't know that there's a right answer to this. It's if I put myself in that situation, I extract myself from it. I'm back in my car. I'm at safety. Maybe I would stay out there by my vehicle and, with my handgun on me, and try to draw the attention of my coworkers who were running from the building and motion them over towards cover. And I would hold up a defensive position at best. I don't think that I would go back in. My goal at the end of the day is probably just to get back home to my wife and kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. Man, that's hard because I think as I read that question, I related it to the Parkland shooting. At Stoneman Douglas School, and it's a little bit different when you had an armed deputy that was outside not going in. That's
his job to go in.
That's his job. Yeah. And that kind of hesitation is frankly unforgivable. But a civilian who had managed to extract themselves from the situation to go back in, I think you've just added one more potential casualty to the list, your own. You've added complexity and confusion to the response for law enforcement.
Very dynamic situation.
In a very dynamic situation. And to your point, how well trained are you? Can you engage a moving target that's shooting back at you? I've taken some simunition type force on force training before, and let me tell you, there's a big difference between shooting a target on a 2-dimensional range and having another human being that's thinking and moving and strategizing the situation, shooting back at you. So it's very dynamic. I really want to wait and maybe table that question and bring it back up when we have Ian Strembeck back with us, or Jason or one of those guys. See what they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So David, I apologize. I don't know if we answered your question, but it was a good one. I think right now my question is going to be, it depends really. And I think I would probably try to take that defensive position and motion people over and, try to coordinate medical care for any wounded, things like that.
Medical aid. Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I would try to be as helpful as I could from outside the immediate situation. And I think you could do some good and protect your coworkers from there. And if you're a gun guy, you have a bit of a mindset regarding the situation more than a non-gun person or somebody that's not totally equipped to handle this type of thing. So you may be better off, being the guy on the phone with law enforcement. Yeah, absolutely.
We have an active shooter. It looked like he has an AR-15. It looks like he has a Beretta M9. Who knows? Right. It looks like he has this. He had a backpack with him. You have a mindset to keep an eye on and notice these things.
Right.
And maybe you could be more service to law enforcement, directing them as to what they have, who they have, what they're dealing with, and where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than going in and trying to engage yourself one-on-one. And yeah, I think you'd be better off relying on law enforcement. I mean, it's so hard to say not being there, and so hard to say without knowing your level of training, David, but it's a great question.
Yeah. I'm going to say also that I'm mentally going back to the reason why I chose to carry a gun. It was for self-defense. And, there's a difference between defensive and offensive. And I think that going back into a situation like that is offensive. The training for that is totally different. The dynamics of that are totally different. Mark, you made a good point. Get on the phone and call 911 and provide, eyes and ears on the ground to them that they can use, especially if you couldn't extract yourself from the situation, you're holed up somewhere in the building in a safe area, barricaded in where the shooter can't get to you. If you can still provide on the ground intelligence back to the law enforcement, that's invaluable. Golly, it's terrible that we even have to think about these things, these days. But here we are. And I was struck by the number of students in the news stories recently that had gotten on the phone and their first thing was to live blogging on Facebook or, whatever they were doing. And I think my first phone call would be to the police. My wife might not be happy to hear that. She might wish that I'd called her first and told her I love her or something. But I try to tell her that before I get out of leave the house in the morning. And in a case like that, I don't know. She's pretty realistic. She would probably understand that I needed to get on that phone and call the police and give them some intelligence that would not only save my life, but hopefully those of the people around me. So that's a really, it's a good question. It's less than six sentences long. And I think we could talk about that thing for an hour. So David, absolutely. I want to come back to it. I really do. I want to get some of these other guys in a future episode and talk about that one. And maybe we can focus on that as a learning point. So thank you for sending that question in. I apologize if we didn't do it justice. All right. So the next question, and I'm going to take a guess. I know that you can pronounce this name two different ways. It has an H at the end, so I'm going to assume it's Leah. This is from Leah in Bowling Green, Kentucky. It says, "Hi guys, my name is Leah. I saw your podcast mentioned on Instagram, and I've gotten hooked. I hope that you'll have Ian on again." So shout out there for Ian. "And I would love to hear about how he adjusts any of his training classes specifically for female shooters. My question is this. My boyfriend and I both got our concealed carry permits last year, and we try to go to the local range at least twice a month. It's usually our date night. He's a good shooter, but we seem to end up arguing every time that we go to the range." I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Let me back up. He's a good shooter, but we seem to end up arguing every time we go to the range when he wants to teach me about how to shoot better. Do you have any recommendations on what we can try to do to make our date night shooting sessions any better and to help me be a better student? Leah, I laugh because I've been there, and I read this to my wife before I came to the studio to record, and she just kind of gave me that look that said, that's not a good situation teaching like that. So, what do you think, Mark?
Oh man. I resort to my wife. If we go to the range, I'm not giving her pointers anymore. She takes a couple classes every year. Bless her heart. I love that she does it. She loves doing it. She does a great job. She's got a Glock 43. We went through about 9 different iterations of handguns before she landed on one that she was absolutely happy with. And she absolutely loves the Glock 43. And then she actually took her first class with Ian. So it's funny, full circle, because this lady wants, they wants to hear Ian again. But she took her first class with Ian, and she kind of got hooked. she realized that, this wasn't, I think it's an ego challenging thing between husband and wife, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know better than me and I know better than you, and you're not listening to what I'm telling you, and so on and so forth. And it's just,
right.
It's a vicious circle, and it never ends well that I know of. But I don't know. I just stopped telling my wife how to do things better. I mean, of course, unless she's doing something unsafe. But at this point in time, the many rounds that she's got downrange under training, I mean, that doesn't happen. But I wouldn't jump in unless there was something unsafe at this point in time.
Yeah, I laugh, and I think I feel for both Leah and her boyfriend and boyfriend. You poor man, just stop. It's not going to work. My wife gave very sage advice to respond to this. She said, well, why don't they both just take a weekend away and go take a class together somewhere? That way they're getting instruction from someone that's a third party, and it's non-threatening. Right. And I said, well, that's interesting. Yeah. Because, we've done that before. And then she quickly followed it up with, chances are, her boyfriend's not as good of a teacher as he thinks he is. And if you don't know how you shoot well yourself, it's very hard to articulate that and teach someone else how to shoot. And I think there's some wisdom in that. My recommendation would be just relax, guys. If you're going to the range on date night to shoot, just have fun, enjoy shooting. Like Mark said, if it's not something that's unsafe, I wouldn't worry about it. My wife would tell you that we can't hang mini blinds together without arguing over the tools. So it's for no other reason than the fact that I suck as a teacher, probably. And I would just say, Leah, don't, y'all just, dial it back. Don't go to teach each other anything. Enjoy being together and just go take a class. That's where the learning should occur. I wouldn't try to teach each other anything unless you get to a point where you figured out some sort of style of communication where it works. And, I don't want to read too much into this, but I think that what I got out of it was just some frustration, perhaps on both sides. Probably frustration from the boyfriend not being able to convey whatever it was that he was teaching, and probably some frustration from Leah not picking it up, or not liking the teaching style or whatever. It's probably a lot better for your relationship that you just go shoot and have fun. I mean, I think when I showed you this question earlier, Mark, I was like, yeah, that's a quick answer. The answer is no, don't.
Next.
But Leah, thank you. Wish you the best. I would just say, again, get training together, make that a couples weekend. That could be a lot of fun. And go out, shoot him and smoke him and show him who the teacher is. Right. So there you go.
Yeah. I was going to suggest, get some, download. Leah, you can go to just Google dot torture, and then just print off some of those on 8.5 by 11 right out of your computer printer, and just bring those, and you guys can go head to head on dot torture.
Yeah. It'd be fun.
I'm a pretty good shot, and my wife gives me a run for that every single time. It's, females are often better shots. It's very surprising, and it's awesome.
It's the way it is around my house. Yeah, my wife she's way more precise than I am. Precision, I'm faster. Yeah, I'm faster. I can get.
Yep.
I can go to guns quicker and have it on target faster. But where I have to slow myself down and focus, she's just doing that from the gate, and she may not get there as quick, but God help you if you don't hit her first. And especially in a force training, it's there's gonna be hell to pay if you don't get her first, because she is laser accurate. So, Leah, good luck. Keep at it. Don't be discouraged, and don't just treat each other kindly. De-escalate, deep breaths, enjoy the time together. It's fantastic that y'all are going to the range on date night, though. That's really cool. It beats going to a movie. So.
No, I'd love to hear that. It's fantastic. It's great.
Absolutely. All right. So the next one is from Grady via email. And Grady said, I have a friend who has approached me about getting her carry permit. What handgun would you suggest? And what carry method would you recommend? Here's some background information. So I guess this is about his friend. He says, athletic, small frame, small hands, about 5'4", 120 pounds. Mostly tends to wear yoga pants in the winter and running shorts or tights in the summer, so there's no belt to support a heavy firearm. Cost isn't a primary consideration. And then Grady adds, her purse is one of those big, heavy, expensive things that looks like a shopping bag. So, wow, there's a lot to try to unpack there. Athletic,
Sure
small
is.
frame, small hands, 5'4", 120 pounds. So she's relatively petite.
This is almost a painted picture of my wife, Kristen. So
Okay.
she's 5'5", probably 125 is my guess. Normally, our son was 6 weeks old today, so she's a little bit bigger now. But normally she runs about 125, I think. And she's a yoga pants or leggings type of girl quite often. Sometimes jeans, but no matter how much we go head to head about it, never a stinking belt.
Yeah.
And my opinion, with on-body carry, a belt is a necessity.
Right.
And she just don't like them. And after this many years, it's not going to change, I don't think. So
Right.
And I'm not a huge proponent of off-body carry. It has its application, but in my opinion, it's not the best. Both worlds. But where we have landed with Kristen, and like as I said, there was many different iterations of what her carry gun was going to be, and we'd buy one, get to the range, try it, didn't like it. Another one for Mark's collection. Buy one, take it to the range, she didn't like it. Another one for Mark's collection, and so it filled up my safe over a couple of years, but didn't get her anything until we landed on the Glock 43.
Right. That's a pretty good racket, by the way. I like the system of acquiring handguns. That's very effective when somebody else.
You can almost, she probably won't listen, but you can almost pick them knowing she's not going to like them. It's like, babe,
Right.
This Glock 34 is exactly what you need.
All the women are shooting these.
They're all shooting it. It's ported. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
No, but so the 43 is great in that she can reach the mag release. She can reach the slide release.
Mm-hmm.
She can rack the slide easily. She's in pretty good physical shape, but some girls it's a different type of strength to slingshot a slide, quickly.
Yeah, it's the wrist strength and forearm strength, I think. Yeah. Yep. My wife had trouble with that.
And she's able to do that. So she's able to do, malfunction drills and whatnot. And it just fits her gun. It fits her handle. She shoots the 43 better than I shoot the 43. And as far as carry on body goes, I think her preferred method, and I cringe saying this, right? Because I own a holster company,
right?
But I think her favorite method is belly bands.
Okay, yeah.
Type,
yeah.
And she will wear my holsters because they're my holsters, and she doesn't want to feel bad. But I think it's her preferred method.
Right. Yeah.
And I am not a fan because I don't think that they are as secure as they need to be.
Right.
You fall down, you trip, you fall, and your gun goes skidding across the floor and goes into the bad guy's hands. You're in worse trouble.
Yeah.
The retention and the click and the snap in place of a Kydex holster, I think, it's
reassuring
superior to just a friction fit in an elastic garment.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it absolutely needs to work for her, or she's just not going to carry it.
That's very important. Yeah, that's very important. So my wife, a little bit taller than that. She's close to 6 feet tall. A little bit heavier just because of her height. She's slender built. When we first met, I think our first date, actually going back to Leah's question earlier, I think one of our first dates was to go to the shooting range, and she shot one of my 1911s and just loved it. She now carries a Springfield XDS 45 caliber, so it's the tiny little single stack 45. I think it's got like 6 rounds in it or something like that. Just because she likes the way the 45 round feels, on recoil. She's gotten used to that recoil impulse. It's a kind of a shove, more of a gentle shove, and not as poppy as a 9 or a 40 or something like that. So that's her preference. We've tried the same thing as far as belts. She's not crazy about belts. That's just not the style. Women, when they wear jeans, they don't want to have a belt in it because they buy jeans that are fitted to them. Men, we have to wear a belt because it'll fall down on us if we don't. Women's hips are shaped different, so they the jeans they're not going to fall down like that. I guess that's the thing, right? So anyway, she's worn a belt. Kind of like you said, we've argued about it here at the house, and she'll wear a belt. She tried off-body carry for a while and didn't really like that herself. We were fortunate one of the classes we went to early was taught by a law enforcement officer and his partner, and they were very much against off-body carry in a purse or a bag or something like that. So we crossed that bridge relatively early on. She's tried, a couple of inside the waistband holsters of the belt. She'll do it occasionally if she has no other option, but recently, like your wife, Mark Mice, has picked up a belly band style thing called, it's made by a company called Can Concealment. I think I mentioned that in a previous episode. It's a bit like a belly band or a girdle or whatever you want to say. The thing I'll say about the way that the elastic on that thing holds the gun just goes completely down inside of this little kangaroo pouch thing that's made out of elastic, and it's got some other reinforcing around it. So it doesn't protrude. I think that the trick there, though, is you've really got, you got to sneak your hand past it inside the elastic pouch to get it out. So I don't know that it's the fastest way to draw, but I guess it beats her leaving it at home, and she likes it and it works for her. So, to your point, Mark, I'm not going to argue that it works for her, and that's what she's going to carry. One thing I'll add is I purchased, oh my God, I'm going to admit this, and I'll never be able to face anybody ever again. I purchased a fanny pack. So, it's a 511 brand fanny pack, and I bought that thing for the sole purpose of carrying a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm, which is their tiny little single stack 9mm, in that with my wallet and keys if I wanted to go to the gym, because I didn't want to leave a gun in a gym in the locker or anything.
Sorry to interrupt, but did you get the fanny pack with the buy the fanny pack, get the kilt free promotion that 511 was doing? Or
I did not get the kilt. No, I really, if I got in the kilt, then it's hard to make fun of a guy wearing a kilt and a fanny pack, because you think this guy's either nuts or he's a complete, beast, and he'll caber toss me into the next country or something. But, no, I did not get a kilt. I'd like to have a tactical kilt. That's on my wish list. So, but
we have a mutual friend and a potential future guest that wears a kilt now and then.
Really? Is it Mike?
No. Mike wears a fanny pack though.
Does he really? It's excellent. Oh yeah. Well, so the fanny pack, I'll say that I have not worn it yet. It's hanging on a hook in my closet, and it's kind of the badge of shame that I even bought it. It's actually really cool. I mean, the thing will hold a Glock 19, which is Glock calls it a compact, but it's really not. It's like a medium frame gun, double stack, 15 rounds. Everybody knows what a Glock 19 is, I hope, but it'll hold a whole Glock 19 and a cell phone and your keys and your wallet, and it does it pretty sturdily. And it looks like something that you would have some snacks in or something, right? I mean, so it's but it's got this really neat zipper thing that you can grab it and you pull, and the whole front of the panel falls down, and then there's quick access to your gun if you needed it. And I guess it was made for minivan driving detectives to
quick access to the 115 grain snacks.
That's right. 115 grain snacks and a fruit roll up. So but the fanny pack's an option, Grady, just saying, depending on where you're at, fanny pack blends in perfectly well. I would recommend that she not wear it with shorts and black dress socks, but that's completely acceptable for you to do that if you're dad age. So there you go. That is my recommendation for fanny packs, black socks, and maybe wear some Crocs. That just tie the whole thing together. Hey folks, David here. I want you to think about the handgun you carry for your own protection, and I really want you to think about the holster you carry it in. Do you have trouble concealing your handgun? Does it feel like no matter what you do or how you dress, it's painfully obvious to everyone that you're carrying concealed? Well, I want to take a moment to introduce you to Squared Away Customs. Squared Away Customs is a manufacturer of custom, high-quality holsters for both concealed carry and duty carry. They provide a catalog of holster designs to choose from, and they are glad to take on custom work to design something to meet your specific needs. Mark and his team take pride in providing an excellent product at a reasonable cost. They work hard to keep delivery times short, and their number one goal is to ensure that their customers are satisfied. Squared Away Customs also offers a Heroes discount to military, police, emergency medical workers, and educators. And for listeners of the Shooters Nation podcast, Mark offers a reduced pricing if you use coupon code Shooters Nation. Again, that's Shooters Nation as the coupon code. So, before you strap that cheap floppy store-bought holster on again, head over to squaredawaycustoms.com and treat yourself and your carry gun to something more worthy of the challenge. So, I think we beat that one to death.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that's Grady. That's probably the best we can do for you on that one. I think the key there is just make sure that she finds something that she likes. You're probably going to try a bunch of different options before she narrows in on it. As far as what handgun, I guess we kind of skipped that one. The best answer I can give you that is just go to the range. Rent as many different guns as you possibly can. Find some friends that you can go, try their guns and just try before you buy. Like Mark said, you can end up with a lot of guns in your safe if you don't, but there's just probably no right answer. It's going to depend on her build and her ability to rack a slide. And if she feels more comfortable with a semi-automatic, or does she want a revolver, that kind of thing. So, I would just let her try out as many different options as you can before you buy something.
Yeah, I mean, and something else, I can't stress enough how confident I am in saying that 9mm should probably be a really great place to start.
Yeah.
If your wife has, like for you, David, like your wife has a lot of experience with 45 and she accepts it and she likes it. That's not the norm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that 9mm is in a much better place than it used to be. This whole, technology and ammunition thing has done wonders for 9mm. It's a really great place to start. It's a very manageable caliber. It's cheaper to shoot. You can typically fit more rounds in your gun than you can with a bigger caliber. And after taking some classes and being an RO in quite a few classes, all female classes, and seeing women show up with 5-shot wheel guns and working through the drills, I think the last 2 or 3 classes that I RO'd that were all female, I ended up going to my truck and getting in my lockbox and pulling out a Glock 19 or a Glock 43 or a Glock 17 and handing it to a female student that bought a wheel gun because they were told, this has no buttons, this has no switches, this will be easier for you, here you go.
Right.
And it's just it's not a practical application when you need to put rounds in a tight group,
Right.
and you're doing it and with a 12.5-pound trigger pull that's about 1 inch long. It's just a great pistol shooter has a hard time with it.
Yeah, I think there's a good reason why, small snub nose revolvers used to be the domain of the backup gun for a police officer or a detective or whatever, because they had a primary gun that they went to, and it was generally a semi-automatic of some sort. There's it's no fun to take a revolver and take a defensive shooting class. Reloading that thing, you will immediately fall behind in the class while other students are, reloading from a magazine and going straight back into shooting. Even with a speed loader or speed strips, you're going to be there for a minute.
And the backup gun, theory. I mean, that's exactly it, right? And if you're going for a backup gun, the S has already hit the fan,
right?
And you are not at a distance at which you can extend and put sights on your target, right? If you're going for a backup gun,
that's
you're touching.
That's kind of a get off me gun, right? Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
It's better than a sharp stick. It's a get off me gun. So, she may pick a revolver. It may be the thing that works best for her. And I would say that think through that carefully and consider your options. And I guess that's still better than going unarmed. So just understand the limitations of that. It's going to be difficult to train with. It's not going to be pleasant, and reloading it doesn't happen very quickly. But there's statistics out there that say that most civilian shootings are over in 3 or 4 rounds and such. But statistics tend to be an average of things, and so just bear in mind that statistic also involved shootings where there were multiple assailants and multiple shots exchanged. So just because they said that the average is X, you have to understand that there were outliers, and it would suck to have an outlier be your particular self-defense situation and you be at the disadvantage. So,
kind of a tangent here. It would be a great guest to get on that I could talk to would be John from ASP, Active Self-Protection.
Oh yeah.
Are you familiar with that
YouTube channel? I know of ASP. I'm not sure I know John.
So John is the voice and the figure of, he is Active Self-Protection. That's his YouTube channel.
Okay.
I think they're the biggest gun channel on the internet.
Now I want to go Google it.
And all he does is a bunch of, 2-minute videos of a shooting, an instance, an active self-protection instance, and he breaks them down.
Okay.
And the rights, the wrongs, what happened here, what didn't happen here, what should have happened here, what could have happened here, type of thing.
Right.
He's a good guy. I think he'd probably jump in and do an episode with us.
I would like to do that.
I'll just shoot him a message this week and see if I can get it happening.
I would appreciate that. I think the listeners would too. I just Googled it, and one of the first links here was a YouTube preview, and it's welcome to Active Self-Protection, and it's got the Viper head on the front of the video. I know I've watched these before, so that'd be fantastic. Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm going to skip ahead one question, and then I'm going to come back perhaps. But the next question kind of dovetails with this. This question was from Vic C on Facebook. So Vic, I'm not mentioning your last name because it looked like you tried to kind of keep that private. So I'm going to respect that. Vic says, you guys talk a lot about making sure you get a gun that fits your hand properly. Can you explain a little about how the gun should fit your hand and how you would know if fit is a problem? Huh. Okay. Yeah. Why don't you take a stab at that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is an easy one. If you put it in your hand and you don't like it, it doesn't fit.
Simple. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and I'm not trying to dumb down your question at all, Vic, but like you put it in your hand and it does not feel comfortable to you. You can't reach your magazine release easily. You have to really adjust your grip to feel confident in what you have. And like if you do a practice draw and you push your gun out and it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It's probably not the right gun.
Right.
There's so many different grip angles and thickness and width and there's so many options out there. And then once you get them, whether it's an M&P or a VP9 or a Glock Gen 4 or Gen 5, you have different back straps that adjust the length of pull. They adjust the grip angles. They adjust the palm swells. If it doesn't feel comfortable, it's not right. That's my quick dumbed down version of the answer. If you put it in your hand and it's not good, then it's probably not the right gun.
I'm going to pick right up on that because you mentioned palm swells and interchangeable panels and things like that for your handgun. Vic, I've probably got, at last count, 4 Glock 19s. And, I just buy those silly things whenever they show up used because you can't have enough of them. I'm not going to lie to you. I've got one thrown in a toolbox. It's got the finish all beat out of it, and it looks like a guy tried to texturize the grip with a flamethrower and a rabid ferret. So, when he sold that thing for under $300, I said, "Yep, I'll take it," because I knew where it was going to go. Right, done. Yeah, that's my toolbox gun in the garage. But, what I've switched to though is the Smith & Wesson M&P, just because that seems to fit my hand better. With the 2.0 series, they made some improvements. They changed the twist rate of the barrel, and they changed the trigger and the sear to make it feel a little bit better. And the twist rate helped the accuracy and all that kind of stuff, right? But the one thing that they really did with it was they changed the texture of the grip. So it's got almost a texture that feels kind of like skateboard tape right out of the box. You don't have to send it off to have it stippled or anything like that. It's really darn grippy straight out of the box. The other thing that they've done is they used to always include a medium, a small, a medium, and a large interchangeable back strap, which changed the way it felt in your hand. With the 2.0, they've put what they call a medium large. So it's in between the medium and the large. And that back strap fits my hand better than anything that they've had up to this point. It allows me to get a two-handed grip where my support hand, my left hand, really has ample room to just lay in on that side grip panel and apply good pressure to it and control the gun. And it also makes what I'm going to call the length of pull, which would be the width of the gun width of the grip front to back. It set it just right so that my trigger finger hits exactly where I want it to hit on the trigger without any conscious effort. I can grab the gun, and my trigger finger is laying on that trigger on the first, the pad of my index finger. It's not at the joint or anything like that. It's right in the middle of the pad of my finger. So with a striker fired gun, that seems to work best. I don't drive it low left or anything like that, which is a common thing that you see with Glock guys. If they don't grip the gun properly, they'll start shooting the thing low left or low right, depending on if they're left-handed or right-handed. And a lot of it has to do with how much of their trigger finger they're putting on the trigger. Are they going past the first joint, or are they at the first joint? What are they doing? So that's why that works for me. I would say that along that line, making sure it fits your hand would include those things. Can you put your support hand on it and get a good hand weld, if you will? I'll make a note to include in the show notes a link to, I think Brian Enos, a competitive shooter, did a really good article on this years ago about a good combative grip style on your handgun. I'll link to that in the show notes so that you can look and see and look at the pictures and the diagrams. I think it really kind of illustrates it better than I could describe it verbally. But also just making sure that your grip puts your finger where it needs to be on the trigger. And that's in addition to just, does it feel good? Mark's point is just spot on. If it doesn't feel good in your hand, all the rest of that nonsense isn't going to even matter, because you'll never get there. You'll sell that thing before you get a chance to get to know it and get proficient with it.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So let's see here. The next one is from L. Gibson via Gmail. L. Gibson says, "Hey guys, I'm on a budget and I live an hour from the closest range. What's the best bang for the buck training I can do with my handgun to make me a better shooter?" Mark, you want to take a stab at that?
I'm going to say YouTube.
Okay.
There is, if you're not going to be able to pay to go and get professional training, and there is nobody local to you that is doing it, and traveling to go to training is going to be a problem, probably because of expense. there is a lot of really great content on YouTube. You can learn a lot, absorb it, do the best you can, take it to the range, put it in play, see if it's working for you. But the other thing is you need to make sure that you're getting the content from vetted, reliable instructors, right? So I'm really great friends with the guys at Practically Tactical. They have a podcast as well. Go check them out.
Great podcast.
I sponsor that podcast. I think I've only ever done one episode with them, but they are filled with great content. I mean, the premise of the podcast is Nick started it when he bought a Smith & Wesson SD40 VE. And like, this is my first gun. I'm going to kind of go through the whole training aspect from start to finish, and I'm going to document it all. And this is kind of my journey in the firearms industry.
Right.
And now now Nick is like shooting and training with some of the best in the industry. And it's a pretty awesome show. And what's great about it is he has, like I think we will, as we progress here, obviously, he has some really great content and instructors on board, guys like William Petty, Steve Fisher, Aaron Cowan, Ian Strimbeck. Ian's a great dude. He's been on the show. And not to mention the three of them that are on the show are all, Jesse's a great shooter, and I think it's a great platform to get you in touch with good shooters that have a big internet footprint.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. No, I think that's dead on. It'd be fun to do an episode one time when we talk about our favorite podcasts. Practically Tactical is in there with in my top 5. Absolutely. They stay loaded up in my iPhone, and I listen to them driving back and forth to work during the week. So I've always enjoyed listening to them, and you're dead on with that advice. They've got good instructors on there, and there's good information from them and others on YouTube. You can start to see who is a windbag and who really knows what they're talking about when you watch these videos, and also just read the comments on the videos and see if people are concurring with what they say. Because and I'm not talking about Practically Tactical here. I'm just talking about any video on YouTube. If you read through the comments and people are calling them out for giving bad information and questioning them, and the people producing the video can't back up why they said what they did, question it. A piece of advice that I was given from a friend of mine that is also a firearms instructor here in Tennessee was that he goes to a lot of different classes from a lot of very reputable teachers, and he doesn't always agree with everything that they teach, but over time you learn what to keep and what to discard from that training, and you begin to see a pattern for what works for you. And I think you would see that also in YouTube. I would say this. The other thing that I would add, my recommendation, if you're on a budget, there, Mr. Gibson, is dry fire. Dry fire training sounds boring and it's not very glamorous, but really it's a very easy thing that you can do in your own home, and even if you did it for 5-10 minutes a day with some structure behind it, I think it would make a huge difference with your shooting at the range. And so for anybody that's not familiar with dry fire, just a quick and dirty version of it is just simply this. Take your gun, eject the magazine, set the magazine with ammo off to the side, rack the slide, make sure that you've cleared the gun. You have no ammo in the gun. Now, take your unloaded gun, and if you want to, take an unloaded magazine with you and go to another room. Leave that loaded mag where it was in the other room. You don't want it anywhere near you so that accidents won't occur. Go to another room. It's a safe area where you can focus and spend some time by yourself with your unloaded gun and unloaded magazine and practice with it. put it in your holster if you want to practice drawing from a holster. You could actually do practice of just learning to draw from the holster and present it and get it on target quickly. Or you could focus on a dot or hang a target of some sort on the wall, or pick an object on the wall, and just with the unloaded gun, rack the slide to set the striker or to set the hammer, and pull the trigger, and make sure that you can do that without the sights moving from the dot that you've chosen on the wall. And you will learn over time how to manipulate that trigger to be on target and accurate, and manipulate that trigger in such a way that the movement of doing so doesn't interrupt your aim. That's probably the one thing I can recommend. If you did that in a structured format, 5-10 minutes a day, observing all those different safety precautions. We don't want you to shoot anybody else, or shoot a hole in your wall, or blow the family picture off the wall or anything like that. So again, really be diligent about making sure that gun's clear, but do some dry fire training. You can take a coin, a dime, or a quarter, and you can set that thing flat on the front sight blade and work at manipulating the trigger so that thing doesn't wobble and fall off until you break the pull and either trip the hammer or trip the striker. Nothing really scientific about that. It's just you're trying to get to the point where your finger moves independently of your wrist, and your hands and such moving, and that's kind of an unnatural thing. If you really just take your empty hand, hold it in front of you, and move your finger in a trigger form, like you're pulling a trigger, you can see that just the way that your muscles and tendons work together, it causes movement through your whole hand unless you focus on keeping it still. So this all sounds very elementary and basic, but I'd say that dry fire, where you get to the point that you can manipulate the trigger without screwing up your sight alignment, will make a big difference in how you shoot when you get there. So, just a thought.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And dry fire. I mean, we work in a holster shop, so there's like blue guns, like rings, blue guns, and molding guns, and they're all over the shop. We have about 300, 400 of them scattered around the shop. And Corey and Cole and myself, and we have another part-timer, Don. It's a constant, and we actually have a mannequin, and we've dressed the mannequin up with the orange hoodie.
Okay.
Just like in the movie I Am Legend.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
And we named him Fred.
Right.
Because that was the mannequin's name. And
right.
I Am Legend. So Fred gets shot. Like
a lot.
So many times every single day because we just dry fire on Fred.
Right.
And then we have a VTAC target, and we just got a little badge on it. It says, "Hello, my name is ISIS." we dry fire on that as well. So yeah, we constantly are walking around the shop with different mold guns, blue guns, and working on presentation.
Yeah.
Walking from one end to the other, may as well grab a gun.
Right.
A mold gun and point it at a target and work on your presentation.
You just
happens like it's just a standard for us.
You just said something that I think is actually something you could do. In that very scenario, you can do that in your house with your unloaded and cleared gun. I don't know how many times I need to say that, but seriously, folks, make sure it's loaded and cleared. No ammo.
Buy a blue gun. They're $50.
Yeah.
Buy a blue gun.
Right. Buy the blue gun, an inert trainer of some sort that doesn't have any capacity to hold ammo.
In fact. Not to cut you off again. In fact, if you want a blue gun, because I'm in the holster business, I buy them really cheap and really effectively. Get them quick.
Yeah.
If you want one to match your everyday carry firearm, shoot me a message. We'll get you a gun. We'll get you at a dealer cost. And
I can tell you what I'm doing after the show. I'm emailing you because I do not have a blue gun. I would love to have one or two.
It's a super awesome thing to have. And the cool thing is they're exactly like your carry gun.
Right.
Except they're bright blue and they don't move and they don't kill anybody.
Yeah, there's no mistaking that for a loaded gun. Yep. So, but now I would take that blue gun or your empty unloaded gun and walk with it. And when I say that, hold it out in front of you in a shooting position and begin to walk either side to side or front to back, looking at your target, and pay attention to what your sights are doing. You go to the range and you're standing there shooting at a target squared off at it, you're probably not going to move. But in a self-defense situation, it's going to be very dynamic. You're going to be moving, you'll be walking. It's amazing how much the simple act of walking screws up your ability to aim unless you learn how to hold your upper body in a certain way so that sight stays where it's at. And all this stuff is very unnatural. It's just not something that comes naturally to a person that to say, oh, well, I'm going to walk in a way that's smooth and fluid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like anything else. If you practice it, then it becomes muscle memory, and that will serve you later. So really good question. I hope that we satisfied that somehow with what we gave you. So let's see here. Along the same line, from Glenn via Gmail, Glenn said, I only have access to an indoor range, so I can't do any moving while shooting practice, and I'm getting good at small groupings. I feel like I'm wasting my time and money now. Are there any drills or exercises that I can do while I'm at the indoor range to help strengthen my self-defense skills and help me feel more prepared for an event where I might have to use my weapon? And I guess the constraint there, he doesn't say, but it sounds like, again, at that indoor range, there's no moving while shooting. So what can he do at an indoor range to strengthen his self-defense? He doesn't say whether or not he can shoot from a holster, to pull, to draw.
Yeah,
so,
that would be a first question. The next question is, next thing I would say is shoot with your left hand.
Wow,
we can. If you think that you are that proficient standing still and you can't get any better with your dominant hand, start doing it with your left hand. And if you want to know how good you're going to be shooting with your left hand and you don't do it often, brush your teeth with your left hand tonight.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's awkward. It hurts your gums. It hurts your mouth. It's not comfortable. It's like, what is happening right now? Why is this so hard? And it's very similar to shooting a gun left-handed if you're not used to it.
Yeah,
you feel like it's your first day.
Your subordinate hand just doesn't have the fine motor skill that your dominant hand does. So that's why.
Well, it does. It's just in different ways, right? Because like my left hand knows its position as being a support hand.
Oh, that's a good point.
It knows exactly what it needs to do.
Yeah.
But that finger doesn't know a dang thing about pulling a trigger, right? Mike, one of the guys that we want to have on, Mike Cicino, he teaches a class called No We Can't. And it's all about shooting left-handed.
So what you're saying is if I ever take that class from him, I want to lie and tell him I'm a lefty, and he'll make me shoot with my right hand all weekend.
Wasn't that an old billiard pool movie or something? What was that?
I don't know.
Do you remember what I'm talking about? He shot pool the whole tournament and gets right up to the end, and it's like there was no way he was going to win.
I don't know.
And then he puts the cue in his other hand and winks at the guy and just walks the table and shot it righty the whole time.
It wasn't The Color of Money, was it? That was the Newman and
Tom Cruise. No, it wasn't that one. It was more modern.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'll have to go check that out and see what that was. Glenn, as I was reading through your question, I didn't even think about shooting left-handed. That's fantastic. What I thought about was that my indoor ranges nearby have a night each week where they have competitive shooting, and it's the only time of the week where they will open up the counter or the stalls, if you will, that you stand out while you're shooting. Most of those things have a table that lifts up or flips up, and you can walk out into the range, do range maintenance or whatever. But on these competitive shooting nights, it's the one night where they open those up and you actually walk out onto the concrete where the lanes are, and they've set up barriers and barricades and stuff. If you've never done any competitive shooting, I think you ought to really check that out and ask them about, USPSA or IDPA or Glock sports shooting and see if they host those. That's a way to use your indoor range to do something that's on the move and shooting from barricades and shooting around barricades and things like that. It's not instructor-led training. So this should not supplement that in any way, but it will show you a lot about how you shoot on the move and under stress, and it gives you a chance to do something other than just stand there and pull the trigger. So check into that. You might have a lot of fun.
Another training aid that I use a lot when I'm shooting by myself, and this would work perfect in that application, is go to Amazon, pick yourself up some snap caps in your caliber, and then just have like a little bowl in front of you while you're loading your mag.
Mm-hmm.
and have it, so I have a Glock 17, so it holds 17 rounds in the mag. So put 17 live rounds in the bowl, then pull out 3, toss in your 3 snap caps, and then kind of just load by not looking at your ammo, so you don't know where the snap caps are in the magazine.
Right.
And this is a really good exercise to prevent you from anticipating recoil.
Yeah.
It really makes you focus on your trigger pull and make sure that you're doing it very deliberately and you're ready and you know exactly what's going to happen and you're not flinching every single time. And as much as I shoot and as many classes as I take, this is still a regular one that I put into my self-training trips to the range, and I fail all the time.
I'm laughing.
And it's just like,
I know, when you've done it too.
The click in the nose of your gun almost hits the floor.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
when you've done it. Yeah. No, one of the classes I took, they introduced us to that. And I want to say that Magpul used to make them. I don't think they do anymore, but these things were bright orange polymer, 9mm size training rounds, and they're inert training rounds, or quote snap caps. And what they would have us do is they would have, you'd partner up with somebody and that your partner would load your mag, and they would throw snap caps in there. And I partnered up with my friend Eddie, who was on our first episode with us. And that jerk loaded up like 4 dead rounds, the 4 inert snap caps in a row. And so, I got up there and like you said, when you know it in your heart when you pull that trigger and you hear that clunk and you see that you've driven the nose down and you're like, oh my God, that was a terrible shot, and it didn't shoot, and it's the loudest sound in the world, silence, and then you rack the slide and you eject that dummy round and you go again, it goes clunk, and it's like, how many? Okay, fine, you eject and 3 more times, and it's just like, is there a live round in this magazine or did you load it full of snap caps? And he's back there snickering. And finally, about the time that I lost patience with it, blam, it went off. And by that point, I had actually been paying really good attention to where my sight alignment was, my trigger pull, and I got dead center. And I thought there is going to be hell to pay with you, buddy, when I load your mag. And I literally loaded him up with nothing but inert trainers, and it was funny. So.
Well, and the other dynamic is it's not just the trigger press, but it also is really good practice for getting in the routine of when your gun goes click, that you do a tap, do a rack, and you get your gun back on the target. And
that's right.
Trigger again.
Yeah.
And it's because so often, I can't even tell you, you're in a class, gun goes dead, and the shooter just kind of stops and rotates it, looks at the guns like, what's going on here?
Right.
What's going on with my gun? Why did it just puke?
Yeah, and you have that luxury in a class or on the range, but you do not have that luxury if it were a fight for your life.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, you got to figure that out.
Tapping, racking immediately, like it's second nature, and this gets you there a little bit easier.
Yeah, snap caps. Definitely look into them. It's a really
$6.
Really good question. I like that one. A lot there. So Glenn, we hope that helped you. Next question is from Dennis, and this is actually the Dennis that was on our show a few weeks ago, Mark. So Dennis wanted to know what's your preferred handgun carry method and position. And when he says position, I assume he means if it's on your belt, where do you like to have that gun?
I am a Glock 17 appendix carry only. It's the only way I carry. It's the only gun I carry. It's the only location I carry.
What got you to that? What got you to the appendix carry? Because honestly, that's somewhat controversial, if you will, on the internet from people that think you're going to shoot yourself in the femoral artery and bleed out and die and all that stuff. So what got you the appendix position, and why do you feel comfortable with that?
So I'm not worried about my gun going off because I have a holster that protects the switch, right?
Right.
I have a holster that protects the button that makes the gun go bang. So when it's in the holster, guns don't just go off on themselves. Like you can place a gun on a table, and as long as nobody touches it, it's not going to shoot. So if I can place I can place it in the holster and nobody touches it, it's not going to shoot. So I have trigger finger discipline. I have cover garment discipline when I'm reholstering. And So I'm never worried about shooting myself. That's really the least of my worries. I don't think about that at all. I just think about the steps that I need to do to reholster and unholster safely. And that kind of debunks the whole safety aspect of it.
Right.
How I got here was way back when I first started carrying. I carried a Kimber 1911 5-inch railed 45.
Nice. Probably back when Kimber made good handguns.
And I carried it in a crossbreed super tuck. I was 6'6", 230 pounds, so tall, skinny dude. I carried that gun until I pretty much wore a hole in that horsehide crossbreed holster. And I was with my 3-year-old daughter in Best Buy, and I needed to get a printer, and they were all out on the knee-high shelf there. So I looked above, and there was some up there. So I'm 6'6", so I'm a tall guy. So I reached up and I grabbed this printer and I slide it off, and a lady drops her basket, gasps, says, "He has a firearm."
Yeah.
Started running to the front of the building.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh.
Did you look around for who's the guy with the gun? I got one. Who is he?
Right. I looked around. I'm like, she's looking at me. I'm like, it was pretty quiet in Best Buy. We're rural New Hampshire. So,
yeah.
It's not like a city folk, cities stores loaded with people, but she's talking about me right now. Live free or die, New Hampshire. She's talking about me. I'm here with my 3-year-old buying an inkjet, and I'm the bad guy. All this.
Now I'm about to get hassled.
Like, come on. And so I'm chatting with an LE friend of mine at the time, and he's like, "You should just switch to appendix, man. You've got the perfect body type for it. You should switch to appendix." I was like, "Yeah, I'm almost at pointing a gun at my junk all day. I don't think that's what I'm going to do." And I started thinking about it, and as I said before, if the gun's holstered, it is what it is. So I tried it, and I was like, well, this is the most uncomfortable thing in the world. And that lasted all about 3 minutes. And I took it out. And the next time I saw my friend Chris, he was like, what happened to the appendix carry? I was like, dude, that's so uncomfortable. He's like, Mark, put it in the holster and wear it.
Right.
And give me 3 days. And it's going to suck. And you're not going to like it. But give me 3 honest, morning to night days of carrying appendix carry. And I promise you that'll be the end of it.
Huh.
And it was.
Yeah.
And I've never carried strong sign since.
That
was 2010, 2011.
I admit I've watched Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics videos, and he's big on appendix carry. It's become the thing. And if you really think about it, especially for men now, let me stop and say, I've noticed a lot of women are switching to appendix carry, and it works really well for them because a slender build, you don't have to worry about the grip printing out the back of your shirt and things like that. So it seems like ladies have a little bit easier time with it, but, the guys that I've watched do this on videos and I've seen do it at the range, you can pull up the front of your shirt and access that gun concealed under your shirt a lot easier than digging around back of your hip and trying to dig a gun out strong side or anything like that. So it does seem a lot faster, a whole lot faster.
It's absolutely faster. And one of the biggest things that I find is you are not constantly doing that. Let's make sure my shirt is covering my gun.
Sure.
Flutter with the back of your shirt.
Right. Yeah. It makes sense.
Right. Because in order for me to know that I'm not printing, or in order for me to know that my shirt's not up over my gun,
right,
or my gun's not showing, all I need to do is look at the floor in front of me where I'm walking.
Right.
Or look at my shoe. That's not an abnormal thing.
Right.
But if I'm constantly reaching behind me and trying to adjust my shirt to make sure it's covering my right rear hip.
Oh, you've just broadcast everybody that you've got.
Sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's telling.
Yeah.
You can be the guy at Best Buy sitting in the parking lot and just watch people get out of their car and they're pulling their shirt down over their right hip.
Yeah.
Like significantly, it's like there's a gun. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
But for me,
Yeah, they pull it down. They pull it down so much on the
have,
back that the collar's like choking them on the front. Yeah, they pulled the shirt completely backwards on themselves. So yeah.
And all I have to do is make sure my shoe's tied.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and then and there's the other thing. It's like nobody is ever going to get the jump on me and get their hand on my gun without me knowing it.
That's
ever.
True. Yeah.
Versus like if your shirt happened to ride up and the butt of your gun sticking out, Mr. Bad Guy is walking behind you quietly and just goes, grabs, and before you know it, David has only got 3 Glock 19s.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, you know, so I'll say this. I need to do some more sit-ups and hit the rowing machine a little bit harder before I can comfortably carry appendix. I can do it. It's not comfortable. And it definitely doesn't hide. I've got the dad bod going. So, I'm, working on that. I think that helps. Physiology definitely plays into that carry format. I saw a blog post the other day. I'm trying to remember who posted it. If I can remember it, or if I can find it, I'll add it to the show notes also. But it was appendix carry for bigger guys. And when he meant bigger, he was talking like, you really need to lay off the carbs and walk a few feet. But he was saying that essentially it's even possible for somebody that has an obesity issue. You just have to buy bigger pants and, dress for it. So, my preferred handgun carry permit still is inside the waistband, strong side around 4 o'clock, which is slightly behind my right hip. Kydex holster, leather holster, doesn't matter. That just seems to be where I put it. And I think it's just 20 years of habit that I need to work past. I took my kilo out the other day, Mark, with one of my Glock 19s. And I moved the holster more up around the 2 o'clock position. So, kind of in front of my my hip, and tried it at the range. And daggum, it's faster. It's so much faster, and it's so less clumsy. I now think I probably want to get a kilo from you guys for my M2 and my M2 compact, and maybe try to do that, especially as I continue to lose a little bit of weight.
So, and I get this question, at least once a day. And it's like, I want to try appendix, but I need it to be comfortable. What do you recommend? And even as a guy that's trying to sell a holster and a holster manufacturer that, my our orbit revolves around things being comfortable.
Right.
I straight up tell people appendix carry is not comfortable.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay.
There's no such thing. And then I go on to say, there's no such thing, in my opinion, and I'll say professional opinion, as a comfortable inside the waistband holster.
Yeah.
None of them are comfortable.
You're right.
There's
You learn to tolerate them.
Comfortable than others.
Yeah, you do. You really do learn to tolerate them. It's all. I think that your law enforcement buddy's advice, give it 3 days and then it won't be an issue, is very, very wise advice, because when I start carrying inside the waistband, that wasn't comfortable either. At 4 o'clock or whatever, you just learn to let that become normal, and then it doesn't bother you anymore. So I think you're dead on that appendix carry can become comfortable for you. You've just got to get over that hump and get past it.
And it's one of those things, I started off by carrying, I think I was carrying a 1911 Ultra when I started carrying appendix. And that was very short-lived because the beaver tail.
Yeah, this thing of beaver tail and the hammer
stomach,
right,
is like brutal.
Yeah.
And anytime we get an order at Squared Away Customs, we get an order for a 5-inch Kimber TLE with a Surefire X300 Ultra in an appendix carry holster.
That's a whole lot of gun.
Like,
yeah.
Whoa. Like this is a 5-inch gun for one, but you also have a steel beaver tail sticking directly into the direction of your stomach.
Yeah.
It's like when you bend over, this is going to be brutal.
Right. Yeah. And that doesn't sound comfortable.
Sometimes I make the phone call and people are like, oh man, I didn't even think of that. And then sometimes I make the phone call. They're like, yeah, that's fine. Like,
nope, rock on with your bad self. Right. Yeah.
Not this guy.
More power to you.
not at all.
Can I interest you, sir, in a gun made in the latter part of the century?
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, heck, even then, like SIGs and others that have pronounced beaver tails, they're not going to be comfortable like that either.
CZ.
So,
Yeah.
CZs. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think with a CZ, you can just put that in your man bag and wear your scarf and just nonchalantly stroll through life. So yeah,
Yep.
Probably not a whole lot of appendix carrying going on with the CZ crowd.
We get quite a few of them.
Yeah. Send your CZ hate mail to shootersnationradio@gmail.com. Oh, me. All right. Let's see what else we got here. We'll, in the interest of time, probably go to one more question and then a couple comments. Scrolling.
I've got one too, actually.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Well, let's go with that.
And this is a question I have, and I just think it's a good conversation piece. It's something that I learned from actually the Practically Tactical podcast.
Cool.
And I think it's a really great question to ask anytime we have a guest on or anytime that we're doing it. And I'm totally going to steal it from them. But the question is, what are you reading?
Okay. So I'll take a stab at that then, I guess. I've got 2 books on the nightstand right now. I've got a copy of a book called Horse Soldiers. It's about the mounted horse patrol special forces troops that were in Afghanistan. I'm trying to think what the movie was. It was just made. It was like 13 Strong. I don't know. I'm probably
13 Strong.
Is that it? Okay, yeah. So anyway, the book is supposedly as normal, way better than the movie. And I'm just a geek when it comes to military history, and I thought that would be a good one to read. The other book that I'm reading, golly, I'm going to have to caveat this. I'm reading Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. And so the reason I'm reading that is just because there is so much going on right now in the political space on Facebook that people are taking the rules for radicals to heart, and they're just beating conservatives and constitutionalists and libertarians into the dirt with things like shaming and divisive tactics to pick apart a group of people that are, let's just say, pro Second Amendment people. They'll start picking them apart and they'll try to separate them out into as many sub-factions as they can. And then they'll try to annihilate each sub-faction using a different tactic. And when they start when the group of people that they're attacking begin to rally the forces and rally their defenses, the other side will pivot and attack a different way. And so I thought, I keep hearing about this book. I want to read it. It seems like it's the cookbook that a lot of the other side is, quote, using. So I'm reading it, and I actually bought a companion book for that. So I guess I'm reading 3 books. The other one is called Defeating Rules for Radicals. But I honestly wanted to read the first one or the original one first, just to see what it said. And then I'll switch over to the second one or the third book, I guess. So that's it right now for me. That it's either boring or exciting, depending on how you look at it, I guess. So, what are you reading right now?
So I have a book that is kind of a go-to that I try and do once or twice a year. And then as far as a new one, I am reading a book called Stalling for Time. Stalling for Time is kind of a memoir from a guy named Gary Nosner. And he was the FBI negotiator in Waco.
Wow. Okay.
And the whole Waco miniseries that was just on Paramount Network.
Yeah.
Really eye-opened me to that whole thing. I was, I'm 38 now, so I was pretty young when that was all going down. Young enough to remember it clearly, but not the nuts, bolts, and politics as to what actually happened in Waco. And this was a very eye-opening story, and hearing it from the horse's mouth was is something else.
Have you finished it yet, or are you still working through it?
I'm 3/4 of the way through the book. I finished the miniseries on TV.
Fantastic. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's a really great because, like these negotiators, they're deep into the psychological
right
mindset of the bad guys.
Right.
And this book gives you a lot of like intel on who, what, when, what, why these guys are thinking this way, and ways to handle these situations to de-escalate, and that's what it's all about. It's de-escalating.
Sure.
And I feel like I'm learning while still getting some history out of it at the same time, which is great.
Well, that was one of the things that Ian talked to us about last time that he was on, was just the verbal jujitsu and de-escalation and things like that. So I bet that's fascinating. I've just jotted that book down and I'll pick it up. Stalling for Time.
Stalling for Time. Yep. Yeah. And then another one of the go-to that I always will read a couple times a year is called Warrior Soul.
Huh. Okay.
It's a book written by a Navy SEAL veteran named Chuck Farr. Chuck Farr is spelled Pfarrer, something like that.
Okay.
He was a SEAL guy that was deployed to Lebanon, and he was there during the Marine Corps barracks bombing.
Okay, wow.
So 80s era SEAL.
Yeah.
Not high tech NVG, Afghanistan, Iraq SEAL. This is
these are old school,
a whole different form of crappy situation to be in. Was Lebanon. And man, I have a hard time listening to some parts of this book because what they went through over there and what they dealt with, and we don't, today we don't think about that stuff much.
No, we don't. Yeah. I think the Lebanon bombing of the Marine barracks was one of the start of the current era of terrorism, really.
Absolutely. And one thing that, so I say read, I audible.
Okay. Yeah.
I listen. I don't have time to sit with a book. I don't have time. I'm ADD as hell. So I have distractions like crazy. So I audible like crazy. And I nonstop almost. Wow. I'm very, very frequently have a book in my ear.
Yeah.
But this is one I'll listen to a lot.
Very cool.
And there's some really great takeaways from it.
Very cool. I like it. I've added both those to my reading list, so I'll be sure to pick those up. All right. Well, looks like we've probably got about 10 minutes left, so switch over from questions to comments. So we had a comment from a person going by the name The Real Smiley. And so I just want you to know that it inspired an Eminem lyric in my head. Will the Real Smiley please stand up? Please stand up. So The Real Smiley says on iTunes, I love it. Just getting started on podcasts, but this will make me a listener. Thank you. We really appreciate that. The fact that we're doing something right and that makes you want to continue listening and not turn us off is fantastic. I appreciate that. We also had a comment from Tall Randall on iTunes. I think you know this gentleman. He said, you just posted. Yeah. He said, you just posted your first episode and I'm hooked. I really enjoyed the topic you chose. I also enjoyed the different points and perspectives that were brought to the table. I can tell you that this podcast will be instantly loaded on my devices. Thank you for starting this, and I look forward to the next one. Randall, thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. The format is something that I can't lay claim to. It's been pioneered by countless others before me, but I can promise you that if it gets to the point that it's just the same voices over and over and over, and we don't have somebody that's at least a little contrarian on here, then it's become an echo chamber, and I will stop doing it. I think that I personally learn the most when other people are challenging me to think through my positions and to defend them, or at least challenge my norms and evaluate why I believe what I do. So if you like the format, I really appreciate that. We'll definitely keep that up. So I appreciate the feedback. Thank you, sir. Also have a comment from a gentleman that goes by the name Glow.Glock from the TGO forum. He said, I listened to the first and was planning on listening to the newest ones, but yesterday I got an email saying it's on Spotify. He said, myself being an Android guy and Spotify user, I really appreciate this, and it makes me proud to be a part of the community. I can listen easily and download. Thank you for taking the time to give us so many options to listen. You're quite welcome. So, yeah, you've noticed that we're on Spotify now. That's fantastic. Really appreciate Spotify adding us. We are now on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify natively, and I think apparently from what I'm seeing on the statistics of the podcast, other venues are picking us up too. I guess they do that by scraping the RSS feed and adding us to it. And so that's wonderful. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Our mission is to get good information into the ears of as many people as we can. So I am not offended at all that others are picking us up. And you can always listen on our website. Thank you all for the questions tonight. You can always email us your questions or comments at shootersnationradio@gmail.com. Again, that's shootersnationradio@gmail.com. You can also send those to us on our website at shootersnation.com, or you can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/shootersnation. Shooters Nation's all one word on Facebook. But yes, definitely send us over your questions or comments. We can't promise that we'll always get to them on air, but if it's something that we think ought to be answered, regardless of being on the podcast, one of us will take a moment to send you a response and hopefully get some information to you. But we're always glad to try to work those into the show, especially if it's something that you want us to ask our guests. So that's always a good way to get plugged in.
Absolutely.
Mark, I guess that's kind of it for tonight. It was kind of fun digging through the listener mailbag and getting feedback. First of all, it's wonderful. I love the fact that we've got people interacting with us and telling us what they want to hear. So I really welcome that. But
I keep thinking it's very humbling that we're just a couple of buddies that are gun guys, and we have all these listeners, and I appreciate it. It's awesome because I really enjoy doing this. It's a good detachment for me, and it's nice to just sit down here and chat and talk guns and gear. You know what I mean? And and debate stuff and see what's going on.
No, absolutely. I mean, 770 listens total and 386 new listens over the past week. And we checked it right before the show tonight, and it's actually gone up. I think it gone up to 776 or something like that in 4 hours. So, I hope I would be humbled if we continue to see that kind of growth on the podcast. Absolutely. And, folks, that just tells us that we're doing something right. And, I'll be honest with you all that when I started this, I asked myself, does the world really need another firearms related podcast? And I felt like maybe it did. And, it is a chance to just us hang out and talk guns with some of our friends and meet new people. And that's just exciting. So, I feel like I can't invite everybody into my house to hang out and talk about guns and have a drink and stuff, but this is the closest thing that I can do. So this is wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I guess we'll do our normal wrap up for the evening then. Mark, where can everybody find you? Do not
forget, if you need or you're in need of a holster, to use the Shooters Nation coupon code at squaredawaycustoms.com.
And the coupon code is just simply Shooters Nation, right? All one word?
Shooters Nation, 15% off.
Yeah, I really, please, folks, go take a look at that. Get over there, take a look at Squared Away Customs, show Mark and Corey some love, and spend some money with them. You're going to get a really good holster in exchange for that. Chances are, they've got something that will fit your needs and your lifestyle. And I know that you guys also do some custom work too. So,
sure do.
Yeah, give them a look. SquaredAwayCustoms.com is the best way to get in touch with you.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. So just to wrap things up, shootersnation.com has been revamped a little bit. We've tried to make it easier for you guys to listen to episodes of the podcast from a web browser. So if you don't have an iPhone or an Android device, or you're sitting behind a firewall at work, hopefully you can get to our website and you can actually listen to the podcast from there. We've also got a mailing list now. So if you head over to shootersnation.com, you can add yourself to our mailing list, and we're going to be sending out special promotions for our subscribers periodically. We're also going to try to send out advance notice of future episode topics so that you can get questions back to us for the guests. I think that would be kind of big. That way, it's not just a listener mailbag where we're answering your questions, but if you know ahead of time who the guests are going to be, you can send some stuff over to them. We'll be glad to try to work that into the episode. The only way you can get that into us in time, though, is to sign up on the mailing list, and we'll let you know ahead of time who's coming in. Shooters Nation swag is now available, and I'm wearing a sexy Shooters Nation ball cap right now. Mark got some stuff your way. Yeah, this thing is bad. So, we got a pretty darn cool logo, and I think that you can now put that thing on your body with Shooters Nation ball caps and polo shirts. They're available on the website. I'll be very honest with you. We get about $2 for every one of those that's sold. Not a whole heck of a lot. It's really more about getting the stuff out to you, but every little dollar helps. Along the same lines, I've caved. We're now also on Patreon. So if you want to subscribe the show, if you want to support the show, you can visit patreon.com/shootersnation, and you can contribute as little as $5 a month to help us keep things going. That money just really goes to helping, with our monthly expenses, such as hosting the podcast and all that stuff. We're going to work on some exclusive perks for our patrons. I just sent in an order for some super cool looking all-weather UV resistant decals with the Shooters Nation logo on it. So those things will be available sometime in the next month, depending on when they land. But it's just a way for us to raise some lunch money and keep the lights on. Again,
I'll do a bigger coupon code for the Patreon supporters as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Well, there you go. Well, we can definitely hook them up. But yeah, I guess, that's a wrap. So, again, folks, thanks for listening. Thank you again for making an amazing first month possible for us. It has far, far exceeded my expectations. I am humbled. I feel an immense responsibility to make sure that we continue producing quality shows for you guys that you would enjoy listening to. So, the best way for us to do that is for you to give us your feedback as you've been doing. Send it over to shootersnationradio@gmail.com. But Mark, I guess that's it. We'll tell these folks good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks again.
The preceding segment was a production of the Shooters Nation podcast. Visit us online at shootersnation.com.